needs. He certainly shouldn't be spending £1.5 million more every year. In total, the way that it works out is nearly £5 million being wasted on this extravagant and self-indulgent use of public taxpayers' money in his own personal political interest. And that is not an acceptable use of public money. As Siraj just said, we believe that that money should be used to enable and facilitate our constituents, Tower Hamlets residents, being able to access council services directly. One of the things that we've been doing ever since the election, we said that we would listen to what people told us was good and bad about the last time when Labour was running Tower Hamlets Council. We would listen to the result of that election. We would listen to what people had to say. And one thing that people have told us over and over again is that they're struggling to get through on the phone, that the council doesn't respond to them by email either. And so we know that there needs to be more staff working, responding to our residents' inquiries. But we also know that many of our residents don't want to rely on emails. They're not in a position to be able to do that. They're digitally excluded and they're frustrated by having to use the phone all the time and not get an answer. And so we're saying that we want to partially reopen two of the one-stop shops that were closed, one of them in Bow and one of them in Poplar, which will sit alongside the new residents hub that's here in down the road in the new town hall, where we believe that residents will have open access to be able to go in and say this issue has not been resolved, I need you to sort it out, and that somebody will take responsibility for seeing that through. So as Siraj says, we're saying that that money that's currently due to be wasted on the Mayor's office should be spent instead on improving customer access for all of our residents without having to go to the Mayor to make a complaint about the council officers not responding. But we also think that that money needs to be spent on improving the governance and the probity and the scrutiny in this council. And that's why the suggestion that we're making is to expand the numbers of overview and scrutiny committee meetings that are held, both in terms of housing, where there's going to be a new in-house council-run service, and it's really important that that councillors and residents have an opportunity to hold officers to account for performance there. But similarly, in terms of public realm, particularly refuse collection, street cleaning, and community safety, and those kind of things. But the final area that needs scrutiny isn't something that just us as Labour councillors believe in. It's something that points back to the difficulties and experience that we had here in Tower Hamlets a decade ago, when independent commissioners were sent in to run this council. And that is that there needs to be scrutiny of all grants issued and awarded in this authority. That was a specific recommendation when the former Secretary of State sent the commissioners in, and that's something that we believe still should be happening right now to assure all of our residents that there is probity in the award of grants. So the final thing that I wanted to just say a little bit more from what Siraj just said is about the education maintenance allowance. So just as there were issues in the past with the award of grants, so there were issues around youth services. So the Labour Party in Tower Hamlets absolutely believes in an in-house council-run youth service. But our residents, again, have to have an assurance about the way that that service will run. And so what we're suggesting is that there needs to be a phased approach to the expansion of this service. And by doing that, we free up by taking our time and making sure that the service is focused on delivering services for our young people instead of itself and its own interests. We need to free up some extra money, which we believe needs to be invested in our young people here in Tower Hamlets. So when we're on the doorstep, those children, whose education was disrupted by COVID. We've never seen anything like the pandemic. We've never experienced as a society the kind of impact that level of disruption will have on a child's educational attainment. And we can't experiment. We can't wait to see if this has caused problems. We need to get in front of the curve here and try to make interventions that are useful. And that's why the two interventions that we're specifically saying for young people in school or further education are, one, a big expansion of the education maintenance allowance. Like Siraj, Gordon Brown is one of my political heroes, not my only political hero, but one of them. And I think that that introduction of the education maintenance allowance by the Labour government is something that was one of our proudest achievements, cut when the Tories and the Lib Dems came into power in 2010. So here in Tower Hamlets, we were able to maintain that in the past, and credit to Lutfa for doing that for a short period, and also to John Biggs for continuing to do that for another period. We need to go back, though, to something which is a really meaningful value for an education maintenance allowance. And that's why our amendment proposes to double its value to £800 a year, £20 a week for every week that someone's in further education, and also to raise the eligibility threshold as well, so that families, many more families are able to access that. We've come across examples of constituents of ours who thought that they were going to be eligible for this money, who thought their children were going to be eligible, and they turned out not to be. And others that we know are still waiting in the queue while the council is trying to decide whether they are or aren't. We need to see this come through almost as a matter of right for young people that are trying to further their education in college or sixth form. Finally, I want to say a little bit about we want to see more help to those children at key stages 3 and 4 whose education was really disrupted, particularly the transition from primary to secondary school. Their education, we know, was massively disrupted. They spent far too long at home during the pandemic, and they will always struggle to catch up unless more interventions are made. And that's why we're also suggesting £500,000 more going towards personalised tuition support, and also some money for careers advice as well, which is something that we think is really important for those young people that aren't going to be going on to university. So I'll leave it at that for the moment, but really look forward to your questions. And thanks again for
we can see Councillor Rebecca Sultana has joined us. I know she had a personal family issue, that's why she's quite late. But yeah, she was meant to be chairing today's meeting. I've just deputised on her behalf. And she's also the Deputy Shadow Cabinet member as well. Thank you to you all for presenting the Labour Group amendment budget. And like people have said, there's about 19 জন councillor for our elections. So public office আমরা বিশেষ করে আমরা ইলেক্ট করেছেন তো আমরা চাইতে লগে নয়া যারা আছেন councillor বা পুরানা আমরা লগে মিডিয়া কাজ হইয়া good opposition থাকলাম বর্তমান মেয়র বা স্পায়া অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেশন মিনিস্টার তারা বালা কাজ হয়ে গেল আমরা বললাম বালা কথা আর যখন আমরা বুঝলাম যে আমরা কিছু ইমপ্রুভ করা যায় বা আমরা সাজেশন আছে যে ওলাখান করলে বা ওলাখান স্পেন্ড করলে আরো বেটার হবো আমরা বেনিফিট লাগে এটা লাগলে আমরা আজকে আসলে মেইন so আপনারা যারা আছেন যারা questions of that please for you know like the president said if there's a lot of questions you get introduce for you at 2 TV channel